Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a bit of a hidden epidemic in the tech world. We're going to look at why typing code physically hurts and exactly how you can fix it by breaking free from traditional keyboard layouts. So, if you've ever ended a long coding session with a throbbing wrist or an aching hand, you are absolutely going to want to pay close attention to this. If you're a programmer, developer, or data scientist, you know you type a massive volume of these exact symbols every single day. We're talking parentheses, curly braces, brackets, operators, semicolons, right? For you, they aren't just occasional punctuation marks. They're literally the fundamental building blocks of almost every line of code you write. Think about it. You probably type more semicolons in a single week than a novelist types in an entire lifetime. But do me a favor, look down at your right hand right now and ask yourself a pretty serious question. Why do almost all of these crucial, high-frequency characters live crammed together on the far right side of your keyboard? It's just this crowded, hard-to-reach neighborhood for what are arguably the most important tools in your toolkits. And here's the thing. This placement isn't just slightly inconvenient. It actually kicks off a dangerous physical chain reaction. Over long coding sessions, those constant, repetitive reaches with your absolute weakest finger, the pinky, force your hand to constantly deviate from its natural, neutral position. That awkward deviation, it leads straight to intense wrist fatigue. And over time, that repetitive strain can literally contribute to severe, career-threatening repetitive strain injuries, or RSI. Okay, so here is our agenda to fix this whole mess. We're going to start with the pinky problem, then dive into our first solution, dedicated layers, followed by solution 2, number row remapping. After that, we'll figure out which approach is best for you, and we'll wrap it all up with how to design for frequency. All right, part 1, the pinky problem, and the sheer absurdity of tradition. We really have to kick things off by acknowledging just how crazy the standard keyboard layout is for modern programming. The reality here is that traditional symbol placement was never designed for developers who are typing brackets and operators on literally every single line. It's essentially an inherited historical accident. We are basically using an interface designed for standard pros to write complex, modern software. It constantly forces your right hand to stretch and strain completely out of its neutral position. But, as the source material points out, we don't just have to accept this accident of history. So, let's look at part 2, solution 1, dedicated layers and bringing symbols directly to the home row. This is our first major fix for this ergonomic nightmare. Now, creating a symbol layer completely flips the script. Instead of forcing your hand to reach way out toward the distant edges of the board just to grab a bracket or an equal sign, you press a key to activate a separate layer. And just like magic, your most frequently used symbols are mapped right beneath your strongest fingers, right on or around the home row. This drastically reduces that awful lateral reaching. It takes the heavy lifting off your weak pinky finger and perfectly distributes the workload across both hands. You're basically building a custom layout that is perfectly optimized for the actual code you write every day. And hey, the good news is you don't have to start from scratch. If you're ready to build your own layer, the sources highly recommend checking out a few fantastic starting points. There's Prime's video, which gives a great breakdown of the ergonomic load of symbols. There's Sonaku's super popular symbol layer, which you can also find featured in the Taylor key layout. And if you want a really practical reference on how to actually think through placing your keys, Gitruer's design guide is an absolute must-read. But, maybe you don't want to learn a whole new layer. Maybe activating a separate mode just sounds like way too much friction. That brings us to part 3, solution 2, number row remapping, which is your mode-free alternative. If you happen to be using custom keyboard firmware, something like ZMK, you have this incredibly powerful tool right at your fingertips. It's a brilliant little feature called ModMorph. Simply put, ModMorph means a single physical key can output completely different symbols depending on whether you're holding down a modifier, like Shift. It gives you absolute total control over what happens when keys get pressed together. So with ModMorph, you're no longer boxed in by that traditional Shift plus number setup at the top of your keyboard. You can completely replace those defaults to put your most vital programming symbols in the most comfortable spots. Imagine moving your frequent brackets right to the center, where your strong index fingers can easily grab them. Or you could shift a lot of that heavy symbol burden completely away from the right hand and finally share the load with the left hand. The source material actually calls this a minimal change optimization. And honestly, that's the perfect way to look at it. You get this massive, game-changing upgrade in symbol ergonomics, but you don't have to fundamentally change how your keyboard behaves. It stays completely mode-free. The symbols are right there on the exact same keys you already know. They're just arranged in a way that actually makes sense for a programmer. Okay, moving on to part 4. Which approach is best? The ergonomic showdown. Because now the crucial question is figuring out which of these two approaches, a dedicated layer or number row remapping, is the right fit for your specific workflow. Let's just compare them side by side for a second. On the left, a symbol layer gives you absolute total freedom to optimize your reach. It focuses entirely on home row comfort and using your strongest fingers. But admittedly, it comes with a pretty steep learning curve since you're memorizing a totally new mode. Now, on the right, number row remapping is a much more conservative change. It gives you that mode-free simplicity and keeps your existing typing habits mostly intact. The trade-off? You have fewer available keys to work with, which means slightly less freedom to perfectly optimize everything. Fortunately, there's a really great golden rule of thumb for making this call. Go ahead and choose a symbol layer if you are constantly using symbols and you're genuinely willing to invest the time to learn a custom layout. But choose remapping if you just want a really quick ergonomic win while keeping things feeling familiar. Or, and this is brilliant, you can actually combine both. You can aggressively optimize your absolute most common characters onto a home row layer, and then just leave the rare weird symbols up on the number row as a fallback. And that brings us to our final section, part 5, design for frequency and the mindset shift. Let's see how all of this builds into a super empowering new mindset for your workspace. Look, when you first start customizing, it is incredibly easy to get overwhelmed trying to make every single key perfectly easy to reach. But listen to me, that is not the goal. The goal isn't zero movement. The real goal is to make sure that the specific symbols you type hundreds or even thousands of times a day are sitting in your most comfortable, strongest positions. Basically, you want to design for frequency. Optimize those heavy lifters, and just let the rest fall where they may. There's a quote from the sources that perfectly captures everything we've explored in this explainer today. It says, "Your symbol layout should reflect what you actually type, not what a standard keyboard happens to provide." We literally don't have to accept a historical accident anymore. We've got the tools, the custom firmware, and the strategies to design a layout perfectly tailored to the exact software we're writing. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Think deeply about your daily workflow right this second. What is the single symbol you type the most? Is it a semicolon, a curly brace, maybe an equal sign? Now ask yourself, why on earth are you still straining your pinky to reach it? It is high time to bring your tools exactly where your hands want them to be.